Have you ever stepped into a place that feels totally different, but it's right next door to normal life?
Hmm.
Like, seeing a fancy watch shop right beside microwave dinners in a Geneva duty-free. Or even picturing, like, a nation based in space.
Yeah, it's a strange thought.
Well, today we're diving into Atossa Araxia Abrahamian's book, The Hidden Globe. She explores these elsewheres and nowheres that kind of operate alongside our world.
And what's really interesting is her personal connection. She grew up in Geneva, saw that contrast firsthand, the city's kind of dull reputation versus this hidden secret world underneath.
Right, a world of exceptions.
Exactly. So her book digs into the logic behind these spaces, who's making the rules, who gets to bend them, that sort of thing. Our mission here is really to understand this hidden globe she talks about.
And she argues Geneva isn't just in this hidden globe, it's almost its capital. Calls it a city of exceptions, like Swiss cheese.
A state of Swiss cheese, yeah. Holes in the rules.
Apparently it's been like that since the Renaissance. A haven for people, money, ideas, even total opposites, like communists and capitalists, all coexisting there.
And the core idea she pulls out is fascinating. In this hidden world, where and when matter less than who, how much, and why. Wealth gets abstract, borders wrap around people or things, not just land.
Yeah, that's a key shift.
Okay.
She gives that example of the special shop near the UN for diplomats, right? Duty-free stuff.
It perfectly shows how certain groups just operate under different rules. They have this sort of functional immunity.
So these exceptions aren't just abstract ideas, they create actual physical spaces,
Sure.
like free zones.
Right, free ports, foreign trade zones, basically areas where goods can land without tariffs or taxes, at least initially. They were meant to help trade, store perishables, maybe.
She didn't say.
Oh, absolutely. Look at the Geneva Freeport. Started as a grain silo, now it stores like priceless art for the super rich. The crucial bit is the suspended state.
Suspended.
Yeah, the goods are physically there, but legally they're still in transit, so no tax. It's a neat legal trick.
A kind of limbo. And then you have places like Singapore that went all in on free trade, built their own massive free port.
And Yves Bouvier, a key figure there, even called his vision for the Singapore free port a cage without borders for art and wealth. It highlights the intention.
But there's a paradox here, isn't there? These zones boost economies, but Abrahamian points out a darker side.
Yeah, she argues that the same logic, this sort of selective sovereignty, can also be used to, well, confine people. Think offshore detention centers for migrants or duty-free factory zones where workers might have fewer rights.
So it's creating exceptions for capital, but sometimes restrictions for people. It ties into this idea of countries leveraging their sovereignty in weird ways.
Commercializing sovereignty, basically, creating legal black holes. Luxembourg is a great example. They deliberately shaped their laws to attract hot money, international capital. They even commercialized radio waves early on.
And this connects to things like the Eurodollar market, right? That whole jurisdictional twister thing.
Exactly. A whole network of legal fictions, non-places, designed to sidestep regulations and taxes. A very complex game with places like Luxembourg and Switzerland playing key roles.
That's like a shell game with jurisdictions.
Yeah.
And then there are flags of convenience for ships.
Oh, yeah. Ships registered in, say, Liberia or Panama, places they might never actually visit just to avoid stricter rules back home. No real connection to the flag state often.
That story of the ship, the Odessa Sky.
Which became the Gruzia, then Salamis' Philoxenia, then Phoenix Titan.
Right. Multiple names, multiple flags. It shows how complex ownership gets, and ultimately it allowed the ship to be scrapped in India, dodging European environmental rules.
It really exposes the system, and Abrahamian takes it further, looking at Australia's offshore detention policies. She calls it hyper-legalism.
Meaning they use legal technicalities.
Sort of exploiting perceived gaps in international law to hold asylum seekers on places like Manus Island or Nauru, effectively creating zones where rights are severely limited, if not absent.
Wow. Okay, so wrapping this up, what does this deep dive into the hidden globe really show us? It reveals this whole other layer to the world operating in the shadows.
It's a complex web, isn't it? Exceptions, these in-between spaces, countries selling bits of their sovereignty.
And it makes you think, how does this hidden machinery shape the world you live in? From the stuff you buy to how people move around the globe.
Are these zones and exceptions just like inevitable side effects of globalization?
Or do they represent something more fundamental? A challenge to how we even think about borders and law and fairness? It raises big questions about responsibility hours and our nations for the inequalities this hidden globe creates. Definitely something to chew on.